You go. Okay, great. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, just to recap, I'm going to be talking about the immune system benefits of Tahitian juice. And like I said before, when I began working for Morinda, I was going to give this research program, this job that I've been doing for the last 22 plus years, a 1-year trial and see if there was anything to Tahitian juice. If it wasn't real or significant, I was going to move on and do something else. But I've been here for more than 2 decades. So we found a lot of good stuff for Tahitian juice and a lot of good support, which some of you are aware of. We publish these things in peer-reviewed scientific journals. And I hope I'm not talking too fast for Yvonne in the translation that's going on there. So I'll try to slow down a little bit. But I have some information I'm going to share with you in this presentation, but I want you to know that there is much more available on the immune system effects of noni fruit and of Tahitian noni juice. But I've chosen a few studies to share with you to give you a good idea of its power. There's been multiple animal species that this has been evaluated in. I'm going to limit it mostly to the human studies and then a couple of studies done in cows. And you may say, why cows? Well, I find this work kind of interesting, and it tells us something about the impact of Tahitian noni juice and the noni fruit puree that goes into it. And also to let you know that, cows are kind of big animals, and they were given relatively small amounts of noni fruit puree, and they still saw benefits. So hopefully I don't go over time, and hopefully what I share with you is helpful. First, I'm going to explain that in China, we have an approved government claim for Tahitian noni juice. So in China, the bottle of Tahitian noni juice will have a symbol on the label, added onto the label, either here on the product. And that symbol says that it has been approved as something called a functional food in China. And that functional food means that it does something beneficial for the body. And in the case of China, you'll see here, if you can read the Chinese, then you'll be able to understand that. Sean can read this and understand it, but it is a claim that is approved for the immune system, that drinking Tahitian noni juice will help enhance immune system function. And that was the result of quite a bit of research done there in the laboratories that were recommended by the government of China. And also we had to provide evidence from outside research, meaning research done outside of China, to support all those claims. And we included a human study in this project as well, but we received approval. So in China, when you introduce somebody to the juice, to Tahitian noni juice, you can point that out and say, this is good for your immune system. Now, the first study I'm going to talk about is this one that was done with the University of Wisconsin. And for a while there, we had a project where we were looking at the impact of noni fruit puree, Tahitian noni juice, these kinds of things in animals. We had begun this because we found that farmers were, and other pet owners and so forth, they were giving our product to their animals, and they were a lot healthier. And we had done this with some farms as well, and they found that these animals had fared much better. Their health was better when they were consuming either Tahitian noni juice or noni fruit puree. So we launched into a program where we funded some research at a university and other universities as well, not just University of Wisconsin. But in this one specific study I'm bringing up here, there were 114 calves. These are baby cows. And they were on a farm that had a real problem with salmonella poisoning. The salmonella, the bacteria, the pathogenic bacteria, that they had a real problem there, and the animals weren't doing as well. They weren't as healthy, especially these newborn cows. So these calves, or newborn cows, were assigned to different treatment groups. And one group didn't receive any noni fruit puree. And now noni fruit puree is the main ingredient that we put into our Tahitian noni juice, just to help you understand that. And then these other 2 other groups, they were given a 15 milliliter or 30 milliliter dose of noni puree twice a day for 3 weeks. And they were observed until weaning, which is about 3 more weeks, until they were done receiving milk from their mothers and then moved into the other stalls where they would be taken care of. And what they did is they tracked respiratory and gastrointestinal. So, the lungs, the health of the lungs and the respiratory tract, and as well as their digestive system. And they evaluated their health scores. And these were based on the number of symptoms they had. So if they had obvious nasal discharge, or a mucus production, or a cough, or a breathing problem, or if they had diarrhea, basically, or something like that, these were recorded and compared. And again, this specific farm had a real problem, so that's why it was selected as the site for this test. What we see here are the results now on those symptoms and those problems in these calves. Now, the health scores are based on the number of symptoms at weaning. So the smaller the number, the better the health, or the fewer the health problems. So you'll see here that you go from, basically, if you look at respiratory score here, now the 15 ml dose puree versus the 0 milliliter dose of noni fruit puree, there wasn't a big change in that value in these two groups. One looks higher than the other, essentially the same, but you see by the time you went to a 30 milliliter dose, though, you had dropped that more than half in an actual big decline in respiratory symptoms in these animals after the additional 3 weeks of taking the noni fruit puree. The GI health score, you see here, again, if you look at that 0 milliliter group, the group that didn't receive any noni puree, they typically had, in that group, they had 50 reports of symptoms. And then you see a decline, though. Now, remember, this was a real problem. Salmonella it primarily affects the gastrointestinal tract, your digestive system. There was a decline quite a bit from by the time in the animals that you had the 50 milliliter dose given to twice a day. And then it's further decline when they were given more noni puree. You see there from 50 to 36 to 24. Then when you combine them, you see the big difference there. The total respiratory symptoms and the digestive system symptoms, that they declined significantly there. So we saw that these animals were doing much, much better in this very challenging environment on this farm, this specific farm, improved their health quite a bit, significantly improved their health. Now, there was another study done as a follow-up to this work that was being done on these farms, where they, again, took 18 calves, baby cows, divided them into 2 groups. There was a control group, had no noni puree, and another group received 30 milliliters of noni puree just for 2 weeks, twice a day for 2 weeks. Now, blood was drawn from these animals when they're going to get this done anyhow because of their health checks that they undergo when, remember, this is a commercial farming operation, they're going to do this. So blood samples were collected on days 0, 3, 7, and 14 for various tests to see how their health is. And for our purposes in this study, the blood was incubated with bacteria, basically E. coli. Now, in your blood, you have not only the red blood cells that carry oxygen, but you also have white blood cells, and those are immune system cells. And in those are cells that attack bacteria and try to kill bacteria. They're called phagocytes. But basically, if you're translating this, you can just say immune system cells that attack bacteria and try to kill it. And so the activity or the degree at which these cells, immune system cells, were able to kill the bacteria was measured in these calves and compared, whether they had noni fruit puree or not. Here's a graph showing this, and I hope you don't mind it being a little more technical, but if you're familiar with this type of presentation, basically just follow the boxes and the lines that follow. You'll see that the numbers get greater over time. And this is the difference between the ability of the immune system cells in the blood of the cows that were fed noni puree, their ability to kill bacteria compared to those that didn't have noni puree. So this is an increase, basically. So you see that by day 0, when they started the trial, there was really no difference. That main darker bar in the middle of the box is the median. That's the middle value when they compare. But you see this increase from day 3 to 7 to 14, that their immune system was actually more active in killing bacteria. The cows that were fed noni puree, their immune systems were more active than those who were not receiving noni fruit puree. So it's stimulating the immune system to be more aggressive in protecting those animals. Now I'm going to talk about the human study. And while I do so, I'm going to be, again, drinking some Tishanoni juice myself. But again, I mentioned the word phagocytes. You'll see that there, that word there in this slide here. They're basically cells of the immune system that engulf or surround and eat pathogens, bacteria or viral containing cells, tumor cells, so forth. I like to think of them as kind of like Pac-Man. If any of you are familiar with a video game called Pac-Man, this Pac-Man would eat, you know, these little dots and cherries and so forth. It's a game from the 1980s, but that's kind of what they do. Now that's an example of something called, of a part of our immune system called the innate immune system. And it's ready to defend the body immediately. Now there's another part of the immune system called the adaptive immune system, and it actually learns to respond to new infections, new things that the body hasn't seen before. This is what this part of the immune system is involved when you get an immunization. It is able to remember this new invader into the body, and it learns to respond. It may not respond right away, but it will learn how to respond and then remember that for later times. And those involve antibodies and so forth. So I give you that explanation to help you understand what was measured in this human study here that we did. This was a group, this was about a dozen people enrolled in this trial, and we gave them Tishanoni juice for 8 weeks. They drank 330 milliliters. So we were doing this study to look for efficacy as well as safety. And this was part of this study done in China. We also looked at liver function, kidney function, and other safety measurements because they wanted additional data to validate the safety of Tishanoni juice that we had already done with all of our work within the European Union and other countries. So that's why I went to the higher doses there. Remember, the animals, they had the cows studies, they had very small doses, relatively speaking. Now, these people, the blood was drawn at the beginning of the study before they began drinking Tishanoni juice. Blood was drawn afterwards. And 2 measurements of the immune system were made in these studies with those blood samples. One was something called IL-2 levels, and that is part of the adaptive immune system. And another one was natural killer cell activity, and that's part of the innate immune system, the one that's ready to act right away. Its job is to attack bacteria, but it also is involved in attacking viral infected cells. So if a cell gets infected with a virus, the natural killer cell will go and attack it and try to destroy it to keep it from reproducing and replicating and growing. Here's an example. Here's the results, graphical presentation of the results. And this is the percent activity of the natural killer cells in these people drinking Tishanoni juice. At the beginning of the trial, when they hadn't been drinking any Tishanoni juice, you see pre-trial levels. And then you look at post-trial levels. This is after 8 weeks of drinking TNJ. They had about a 30% increase in natural killer cell activity. It was a quite significant increase. Now, these people were not sick people. These were healthy people. They'd been screened. They didn't have any underlying medical conditions. They were healthy. And these results show that drinking tea Shiononi juice has a benefit to the immune system of healthy people. And so it can help you stay healthy. Now, IL-2 activity, this again is the part of the immune system that adapts to new, previously unseen, what we call pathogens in the body, or antigens, such as viruses and so forth. Again, pretrial levels of IL-2 in the blood were, you see on the left there, and then on the right is after 8 weeks of drinking tea Shiononi juice. And there's about a 32% increase in these IL-2 levels. Again, showing a benefit to the health of the immune system, the adaptive immune system in these people. So this information was useful to us in getting that approval by the government of China, and it confirms what we've seen with other studies. We've also seen this benefit explained in traditional ethnobotanical, the publications where the scientists have gone into the Pacific Islands and asked people what they found noni to be useful for. They have explained this benefit in a survey we did with about 1,700 plus consumers within Europe. That was a benefit that was very common. One of the top benefits is that they felt they had fewer infections and things like that. They were just healthier as a result of drinking tea Shiononi juice. And this provides confirmation of those effects. Now I want to talk about one of the phytonutrients in the noni fruit, and research that was done in Japan at Kinki University in Osaka, Japan. We had done some work with this natural products chemistry group in Osaka there, and they wanted to look at what part of the noni fruit was responsible for these immune system benefits. Now, there are many phytonutrients in there, and I'm sure they all contribute, but they wanted to kind of zero in on where they felt like a lot of the activity was coming from. And I bring this up because, remember, noni fruit is very unique. It's not like other fruits. It doesn't taste like other fruits, and there's a reason for that. It has has a really unique phytonutrient profile or phytochemical profile. It is a very special fruit. So in this study, they had mice that had weakened immune systems, and with a weakened immune system, you don't respond as well. So they actually fed these mice varying doses of noni fruit extracts, and then eventually fed them something called diacetyl aspartic acid. We call that DAA for short. It's much easier to say, but that is the major iridoid or phytonutrient in noni fruit. And they fed them for 1 week, and what they did is then they measured the immune system effects, just as we did in that human study, the same measurements, to see how these different extracts of the noni fruit influenced the immune system as well as the DAA. They actually did this to narrow down to DAA to find out which phytonutrient again was involved. And there I show a little picture of DAA at the bottom for you to look at. And these results were published in a journal called Planta Medica in 2013. But here's a graph of the results. Now, that light blue bar on the left is the control group. These are healthy animals. They have normal functioning immune systems. Then the rest of these bars represent results in animals that had weakened immune systems. So that light blue bar is your reference to see how the healthy immune system should look with IL-2 levels. That VC, the little darker blue bar, is what we call vehicle control. Those are the animals that had weakened immune system but received no noni extract, and they did not receive DAA either. So they had no treatment whatsoever. Then the green bars you see are increasing amounts of the noni fruit extracts that were being tested, water extract and so forth. You see that there was increased IL-2 levels with increasing amounts of noni. And then when they got down to the point where they were looking at the DAA itself, they saw significant increases when they gave them the DAA directly, which is, again, the major phytonutrient in the noni fruit. You'll see the IL-2 levels of that highest noni extract dose as well as the highest DAA dose actually moved back into the range of what you expect from healthy animals that had healthy immune systems. So again, having a good effect in stimulating the immune system. Now this is for natural killer cell activity, and we saw the same effects there. Again, the control group on the far left, and then you see increasing activity. We call that cytotoxicity. Cytotoxicity simply means the ability of the natural killer cells to kill cells, virus-infected cells, basically, or cells that shouldn't be allowed to circulate through the body because they're going to cause harm to the body. So you see increased amounts of cytotoxicity or natural killer cell activity, significant increases with the noni extract, as well as that main phytonutrient noni DAA. In fact, these amounts went above the amount of the control group, the healthy control group. So a big, big increase in immune system activity. So again, these studies confirm what we have seen in the animals and the human studies, the human clinical trial, what we've seen in the traditional uses explained by the Pacific Islanders and people in Europe and in Asia and everywhere around the world, as well as the studies done with the cows. We've also seen these effects done with in chickens as well, just to name a few. Any animals that they've ever looked at, any type of species that have been looked at, you see this effect. So that's kind of an explanation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here if I can, of some of the main research that has been done with Tahitian noni juice and noni fruit puree there. So, Sean, I'm going to pitch back to you on this, but I hope this information has been useful to you.
I hope everybody enjoyed that. I just want to remind everybody that we, in this difficult time when immunity is important and staying safe is important, that Tahitian noni juice is a fantastic, amazing, well-tested, proven immune booster. And in fact, we have a big campaign going on worldwide called Boost with Juice. And so, we want to get the word out to everybody that this is a fantastic, simple, natural way to boost your immune system. So drink your noni and drink more of it every day. And you can see from Brett's presentation that the more you drink, the better for you. So, obviously within safe levels, but keep drinking your noni and share your noni and make sure everybody knows how amazing this product really is. Sometimes I think over time we get used to noni, but it really is one of the most amazing fruits in the world. And we're blessed enough to be part of this amazing company and have the ability to share it with everyone. So I don't think I have the ability to unmute everybody because I gave control back to Brett. But you see a little button down there that says unmute all, Brett?
Look, do you want me to stop recording now as well?
Yeah, go ahead and stop recording. That's fine.
Okay, let me do that first.
Okay.